Welcome back, my gardening friends. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a fresh cup of coffee, and let's spend a little time together in the garden. Have you ever looked across your backyard after watering everything carefully and thought, why do my vegetables still look unhappy? Your beans seem smaller than last year. The zucchini flowers fall off before producing fruit. Your strawberries taste bland. The herbs refuse to grow thick and fragrant. Meanwhile, the weeds look absolutely fantastic. If that sounds familiar, you're far from alone. Most gardeners assume that watering is the easiest part of growing vegetables. Turn on the hose, soak the garden, and you're done. But after many years of gardening, one thing becomes clear. Watering isn't just about giving plants water. It's about giving them the right amount, at the right time, in the right way. In fact, many struggling gardens aren't suffering from too little water at all. They're suffering from good intentions. Gardeners work harder every season, yet unknowingly create conditions that make vegetables weaker instead of stronger. Today I'd like to share 15 watering mistakes that quietly rob gardens of their full potential. Some of these habits have been passed from neighbor to neighbor for decades. Others come from old gardening myths that simply refuse to disappear. We'll separate fact from fiction, look at what actually helps plants grow healthier, and discover several simple techniques that can reduce your workload while producing bigger harvests. Whether you're growing vegetables in a country homestead, a suburban backyard, a small community garden, or a few containers on a sunny patio, these ideas can make a remarkable difference. Best of all, almost every improvement costs little or nothing. So let's head outside together and begin with the very first mistake. Mistake 1. Watering because the soil looks dry. This mistake fools almost everyone. You step into your garden during the afternoon, the surface looks pale. Dust blows across the top of the bed. Naturally, you assume everything underneath must be dry as well. So you grab the hose, but appearances can be surprisingly misleading. The upper inch of soil dries much faster than the lower layers where most roots actually live. After a warm, breezy day, the surface may feel completely dry, while 6 inches below, there's still plenty of moisture waiting for your vegetables. When we water simply because the top looks dry, we often add water long before the plants actually need it. Over time, this keeps the deeper soil constantly saturated. Roots stop searching downward because water is always nearby. Instead of building strong underground systems, they remain shallow and fragile. The next hot spell arrives, and suddenly those plants wilt within hours because their roots never learned to grow deeper. A better habit takes less than 10 seconds. Simply push your finger several inches into the soil. If it still feels cool and slightly damp, leave the watering can exactly where it is. Your vegetables will be perfectly happy waiting another day or two. Learning to trust the soil instead of your eyes may be one of the most valuable gardening skills you'll ever develop. Healthy gardens aren't watered on appearances. They're watered according to what the roots actually need. Mistake 2. Believing more water means faster growth. Every gardener loves seeing fast-growing vegetables. When young corn begins stretching upward, or tomato plants suddenly double in size, it's tempting to think that extra water will make them grow even faster. So we water a little longer, then a little more the next day, and maybe once again in the evening, just to be safe. It feels like we're helping. But plants don't grow because they're surrounded by water. They grow because healthy roots can breathe. That surprises many people. Roots don't just absorb moisture, they also need oxygen. Tiny air pockets inside the soil provide that oxygen. When we constantly flood the ground, those spaces fill with water instead of air. The roots begin struggling. Growth slows. Leaves lose their rich green color. Eventually, the plant may appear thirsty, even though it's sitting in soaking wet soil. Many gardeners respond by adding even more water. Unfortunately, that only makes the situation worse. Think about how fish and people survive in completely different environments. Fish need water to breathe. We need air. Plant roots are much closer to us than they are to fish. Without oxygen, they simply cannot function properly. That's why experienced gardeners don't try to keep their soil permanently wet. Instead, they allow it to move through a healthy cycle. Water deeply. Allow the soil to gradually dry. Then water again. That gentle rhythm encourages stronger roots and healthier vegetables throughout the growing season. Mistake 3. Ignoring natural rainfall. Here's a habit that's surprisingly common. A gardener sets a watering schedule in early spring. Every Monday. Every Thursday. Every Saturday morning. The schedule works beautifully. Until nature decides to make her own plans. A slow, soaking rain arrives on Wednesday. Another shower falls Friday evening. By Saturday morning, the soil is already full of moisture. Yet many gardeners still water because today is watering day. Plants don't care what day of the week it is. They only respond to what's happening in the soil. A single steady rainfall often provides better watering than an entire hour with a hose, because rain falls slowly and evenly across the entire garden. Whenever possible, let rainfall become part of your watering routine instead of working against it. After every good rain, check the soil before adding more water. You may discover your vegetables won't need another drink for several days. Your water bill becomes smaller. Your plants stay healthier, and you spend less time dragging hoses around the yard. Sometimes the smartest gardening decision is simply deciding not to water. Mistake 4. Watering. Too quickly. Have you ever watched water race across the surface of your garden bed? 1 minute the hose is running, the next minute little streams are flowing down the pathways instead of soaking into the soil. That's runoff. Unfortunately, runoff carries your water away before the roots ever have a chance to use it. Fast watering is especially wasteful on sloped gardens, compacted soil, and newly planted beds. Instead of soaking deeply, the water simply escapes downhill. A slower approach almost always works better. Reduce the pressure. Water one section for a few minutes. Pause briefly. Then return for another pass. This gives the soil enough time to absorb moisture gradually rather than forcing it away. Imagine pouring water onto a dry kitchen sponge. Dump an entire bucket all at once, and most of it spills over the sides. Pour the same amount slowly, and nearly every drop gets absorbed. Your garden works in much the same way. Slow watering reaches deeper roots while using less water overall. That's a win for both your vegetables and your utility bill. Mistake 5. Watering every corner of the garden. The same way. Walk through almost any backyard garden, and you'll often see one sprinkler trying to water everything equally. The berry bushes receive the same amount of water as the herbs. The pumpkins get exactly what the onions receive. The young seedlings are treated no differently than mature fruit trees. It seems fair. But gardens don't work that way. Every plant has its own needs. A patch of carrots prefers consistently moist soil, while the seeds are germinating. Once established, they become surprisingly resilient. Blueberry bushes appreciate deep watering, especially while producing fruit. Rosemary and sage, on the other hand, actually perform better when the soil has a chance to dry between waterings. Even within the same vegetable bed, water requirements change throughout the season. Young transplants need frequent attention while their roots are becoming established. A month later, those same plants may require far less frequent watering because they've developed much larger root systems. One of the easiest improvements any gardener can make is organizing plants with similar water needs together. Keep moisture-loving vegetables in one section. Reserve another area for herbs and drought-tolerant plants. You'll waste less water, spend less time watering, and your plants will reward you with healthier growth. Mistake 6. Forgetting about the wind. Most gardeners pay attention to temperature. Few pay attention to wind. Yet a breezy day can remove astonishing amounts of moisture from both the soil and the leaves. Imagine hanging wet laundry outside. On a calm afternoon, it dries slowly. Add a steady breeze, and it's dry much sooner. Your garden experiences exactly the same effect. Wind increases evaporation, and causes plants to lose water through their leaves much faster than usual. Sometimes vegetables begin wilting on windy days, even though the soil still contains adequate moisture. Instead of automatically reaching for the hose, take a closer look. Feel the soil below the surface. If it's still moist, your plants may simply be reacting to temporary water loss through their leaves. As evening approaches and temperatures cool, they'll often recover naturally. For gardens located in particularly windy areas, simple windbreaks can make an enormous difference. A row of sunflowers, a fence, a hedge, even temporary garden fabric can reduce moisture loss while protecting delicate vegetables from unnecessary stress. Sometimes it's not about giving your garden more water. It's about helping it lose less. Mistake 7. Forgetting that mulch needs replacing. Many gardeners spread mulch in spring and never think about it again. But organic mulch is constantly changing. Rain breaks it down. Earthworms pull it into the soil. Microorganisms slowly turn it into rich organic matter. By midsummer, what began as a 4-inch layer may have shrunk to barely an inch. Once that protective blanket becomes too thin, the soil begins heating up again. Evaporation increases. Weeds find open spaces to grow. Suddenly, you're watering much more often, without realizing why. Take a few minutes every month to check your mulch. If you can easily see large areas of bare soil, it's probably time to add another light layer. You don't always need to start from scratch. Often a small top-up is all that's required. That simple habit can reduce watering throughout the hottest part of summer, while steadily improving your soil year after year. Healthy gardens are built one thin layer at a time. Mistake 8. Planting without thinking about soil. Type 1 watering routine does not work for every garden. Some backyards have sandy soil that drains almost as fast as you pour water onto it. Others have heavy clay that holds moisture for days. Many gardens fall somewhere in between. Yet countless gardeners water them all exactly the same way. If your soil is sandy, water slips through quickly. Plants may need deep watering more often because very little moisture stays near the roots. Trying to water lightly every day usually doesn't solve the problem. Most of that moisture disappears before the plants can truly benefit. Clay soil presents the opposite challenge. Water enters slowly, but remains trapped much longer. Adding more water before the previous watering has drained away often leaves roots sitting in soggy conditions for days. That's why understanding your soil matters just as much as understanding your plants. A simple test can tell you a great deal. Dig a small hole about 8 inches deep. Fill it completely with water. Watch how long it takes to drain. If it disappears within minutes, your soil drains very quickly. If water remains for several hours, your soil holds moisture much longer. Once you know how your soil behaves, watering becomes much easier because you're working with nature instead of against it. Mistake 9. Forgetting. Newly planted vegetables need different care. A mature tomato plant and a tomato seedling may belong to the same species, but they don't need the same watering schedule. New transplants have tiny root systems. They haven't yet explored the surrounding soil. For the first week or two after planting, they depend almost entirely on the moisture close to their roots. Once they become established, everything changes. Their roots spread wider. They reach deeper. They become far more capable of finding moisture on their own. Many gardeners continue watering mature plants as frequently as they watered new seedlings. Unfortunately, that often keeps the soil too wet. As a general rule, increase watering depth while decreasing watering frequency as your vegetables grow larger. Young plants need gentle consistency. Older plants benefit from deep, occasional soaking. Understanding this simple transition can dramatically improve the health of almost every vegetable in your garden. Mistake 10. Ignoring early morning dew. Many people overlook one of nature's smallest gifts. Morning dew. While dew alone won't replace proper watering, it does help reduce moisture loss during cooler mornings. On some summer days, especially after humid nights, Leaves remain covered with tiny droplets until sunrise. Plants can temporarily reduce water stress during these cooler hours, while the soil continues supplying moisture below. This is another reason experienced gardeners often choose early morning for garden chores. Instead of rushing outside during the hottest hours of the afternoon, they inspect their vegetables shortly after sunrise. Problems become easier to spot. Leaves look fresher. The soil reveals its true moisture level before the day's heat begins changing everything. Sometimes gardening isn't about working harder. It's simply about choosing a better time of day to pay attention. Every quiet morning offers valuable clues about what your garden actually needs. Mistake 11. Leaving weeds to compete for water. It's easy to think of weeds as nothing more than an eyesore. They're ugly. They spread quickly. They make the garden look untidy. But their biggest problem isn't appearance. It's competition. Every weed growing beside your vegetables is drinking from the same underground supply of water. During hot summer weather, a patch of weeds can steal an incredible amount of moisture before your tomatoes, peppers, beans, or pumpkins ever get a chance to use it. Some fast-growing weeds develop surprisingly deep root systems, allowing them to reach water that young vegetables simply cannot access. The result is frustrating. You water generously. The weeds grow even faster. Meanwhile, your vegetables still seem stressed. Rather than waiting until weeds become a jungle, spend 5 or 10 minutes every few days removing the small ones. Young weeds pull out easily. Large weeds often break apart, leaving roots behind to grow again. Better yet, combine regular weeding with a thick layer of mulch. Mulch blocks sunlight, making it much harder for weed seeds to sprout in the first place. The less competition your vegetables face, the less watering they'll require throughout the season. Mistake 12. Assuming wilting always means thirst. This mistake causes thousands of gallons of unnecessary watering every year. You walk into the garden during a hot afternoon. Your squash leaves are drooping. Your bean plants look tired. The pumpkin vines appear exhausted. Without thinking twice, you grab the hose. But wilting isn't always a cry for water. During extreme heat, many plants temporarily relax their leaves to reduce moisture loss. It's a natural survival strategy. Think about people seeking shade during the hottest part of the day. Plants do something remarkably similar. Before watering, take 1 extra minute. Check the soil beneath the surface. If it's still moist, leave the plants alone. Come back after sunset or early the next morning. If they've recovered, you just saved yourself unnecessary watering. If they're still wilted despite cooler temperatures, then it's probably time for a deep soak. Learning the difference between temporary heat stress and genuine drought stress is one of the biggest milestones in becoming a confident gardener. The plants will often tell you exactly what they need. You simply have to learn when they're speaking. Mistake 13. Watering with a strong jet of water. Sometimes the problem isn't how much water we use. It's how we deliver it. A powerful stream from a hose may seem efficient, but it can actually damage the garden. Young seedlings may be bent over. Freshly planted seeds can be washed away. Soil gets displaced, exposing delicate roots to direct sunlight. Even mature plants suffer when the soil around them is repeatedly blasted apart. Gentle watering is almost always the better choice. Use a watering wand with a shower attachment, a watering can with a fine rose, or simply reduce the pressure if you're using a hose. Your goal isn't to force water into the ground. Your goal is to imitate a slow, soaking rainfall. Nature rarely waters with the force of a pressure washer. There's a reason for that. Gentle watering allows moisture to sink naturally into the soil while keeping roots safely protected. Your vegetables don't need a flood. They need a steady, peaceful drink. Mistake 14. Forgetting that healthy soil holds water better. When gardeners notice their soil drying out quickly, many assume the only solution is watering more often. But sometimes the real answer isn't more water. It's better soil. Healthy garden soil acts like a sponge. Organic matter such as finished compost, leaf mold, and well-aged manure helps the soil absorb rainfall more efficiently while holding moisture much longer between waterings. Poor soil behaves differently. Water either rushes straight through it or runs off the surface before roots ever benefit. That's why experienced gardeners spend just as much time improving their soil as they do watering it. Every season, add a layer of compost. Allow earthworms to do their work. Leave healthy plant roots in the ground after harvest whenever possible, allowing them to naturally improve soil structure as they decompose. Year after year, your garden becomes better at storing water on its own. Eventually, you'll discover something wonderful. You're watering less often than you used to, yet your vegetables are healthier than ever. That's the power of healthy soil. Mistake 15. Trying to control nature instead of working with it. Perhaps the biggest watering mistake isn't about hoses, sprinklers, or watering cans at all. It's believing that every tiny change in the garden requires immediate action. One hot afternoon. We water. A single yellow leaf appears. We water again. The forecast predicts warm weather tomorrow. So we water just in case. Before long, gardening becomes a constant race to fix problems that don't actually exist. But nature has been growing healthy plants for millions of years without garden hoses. Plants are remarkably resilient. Their roots search for moisture. Their leaves adjust to changing temperatures. The soil itself stores water far better than many people realize. Our job isn't to control every moment of the growing season. Our job is simply to support nature when it truly needs our help. The best gardeners aren't always the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who observe the most. They watch. They listen. They learn. And little by little, their gardens begin working with them instead of depending entirely upon them. Final thoughts. Those are 15 watering mistakes that quietly affect gardens all over the world. The good news is that every one of them has a simple solution. You don't need expensive irrigation systems. You don't need shelves full of miracle products. And you certainly don't need to spend every waking hour dragging hoses around your yard. Instead, start with just one improvement. Water a little deeper. Check the soil before reaching for the hose. Add fresh mulch. Feed your soil with compost. Observe your plants a little more carefully than you did yesterday. Small changes repeated throughout the season often produce the biggest harvests. Remember, every successful gardener started exactly where you are now, learning one lesson at a time. Gardening has never been about perfection. It's about enjoying the journey, learning from nature, and celebrating every small success along the way. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 15 watering mistakes surprised you the most? Have you been making one of them for years? Or do you have a watering tip that's made a real difference in your own garden? Share your experience in the comments below. Your advice might help another gardener grow an even better harvest this season. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical gardening tips, vegetable growing guides, and simple techniques that make gardening easier and more enjoyable. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Until next time, take care of your garden, enjoy every moment outdoors, and remember, healthy gardens aren't built in a single day. They're grown with patience, curiosity, and a little care every season. Have a wonderful week, happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next video.